Hey everybody, and welcome to Breaking Biotech, the podcast where we get into all things biotechnology related. My name is Matt, and I want to thank you all for tuning in. Got a hectic show today. I'm going to talk about the main topic I want to talk about is Aimmune Therapeutics. It's a company that is trying to get desensitization therapy to the market for allergies. But before I do that, I want to talk about two things that are going on today. So a bit of a hectic day in the market for companies that I hold. One in particular is Magical Pharmaceuticals, and this morning actually, so I'm recording this on Tuesday the 13th, but Magical reported their fourth quarter and year-end financial results, and the stock dropped about 10% on this. I went through the report, and there's really, in my opinion, nothing too interesting to report. They go through their results. They talk about how much cash they have, which doesn't seem too surprising. So I don't know. If anything, this is an opportunity to buy a little bit more. I'm pretty happy with my position right now, so I'm just holding. But I encourage anybody to read the financial report and to get a sense of what's going on. But in my opinion, this is nothing surprising. Something a little more convoluted was ADMS. So for my first video, I went through why I think ADMS is still has a lot of potential, even though they've been taking a real beating in the last few months. So they're a company that has a treatment on the market now. It's an adamantine extended release treatment that is for dyskinesia in levodopa treated Parkinson's disease patients. So they dropped like 8% today on news that the FDA received a paragraph 4 certification for a generic drug to be released that has similar characteristics as Gocovri, which is Gocovri is the drug, the adamantine ER extended release form that ADMS has released and is starting to market now. So basically, there's a few things that I'm not abundantly clear on. One thing is for sure is that Osmolex is probably the company behind this. So I talked about in the first video, and I encourage you to go back and check that out. Has another adamantine. I keep saying adamantine. I mean amantadine. Sorry. They have an amantadine formulation as well that they got approved based on the immediate release data that was collected in the 70s, the 60s and 70s from the original amantadine studies. So they're obviously trying to make a case that the Gocovri patent is not enforceable and it's invalid, and that they should be able to sell Osmolex ER without infringing on Gocovri's rights. So the fact that the FDA received this is not good. So it means that they're potentially going to be approved to sell Osmolex ER and not infringe upon Gocovri's patents. So the one thing that this document says is that the brand name drug sponsor has an opportunity to decide to fight against the case that the generic company is trying to make. They have 45 days to respond, and if they do respond and say that they're going to fight for their patent rights, the generic drug is postponed for 30 months unless the patent expires or is judged to be invalid or not infringed before that time. So ADMS hasn't said anything given this, and I'm not sure if they did respond, because the data submission here is January 16th, 2018 to the FDA. So presumably Osmotica, the company that has Osmolex ER, would have had to notify them, and we are well past 45 days from then. So it would be nice to know what's going on here. I think I'm definitely a little concerned about this, because the advantage that ADMS has is the patent protection, but also they're first to market, and so they're obviously making moves in the marketing right now, and I talked about that in the video. But if another company is going to be able to undercut them, I don't think it's going to look good for this drug. At least in terms of the potential revenue that they're going to get that I was estimating. So they have a lot of other things going for them. So I'm not selling, but I'm hoping tomorrow or by the end of the week they put out some statement on saying what they plan to do. So go and check out this site. I'll link it in the comments, and it explains a little bit on how generics are brought to the market and how generic companies try to get an advantage from patent holders. So it's kind of interesting. And the one thing they do say too is that there's a suitability petition that they can write in, and so if the drug has a substantial difference in dosage, strength, route, administration, they can get this, and it'll allow them to have this generic. So in checking the labels, the drug is pretty similar. The only difference really is the dose. So this is for Osmolex. They're in doses of 129, 193, or 258. And Gocovri has 68.5 and 137 milligram tablets. So I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see. I'm gonna keep my eye on the news though, and hopefully we get some clarity from ADMS' standpoint. Okay. So with that out of the way, I want to talk about the AR101 drug that they have, that Aimmune Therapeutics has for treating peanut allergy patients. So for those who don't know, peanut allergy apparently affects about 3 million Americans, and about half of them are children from ages 4 to 17 years old. So Aimmune sees an opportunity here to treat these kids, and the opportunity is lowering the threshold of peanut exposure so that they don't have an anaphylactic reaction, which is the cause of death in a lot of these kids. So the means by which they're going to do this is through their conditioned oral desensitization therapy. They call it CODIT, CODIT. Where is it? Oh, okay, characterized oral desensitization immunotherapy. So the way that this works, and this has been studied for a long time now, but this company seems to be one of the first ones to actually try and bring it to market and make a marketable product. So the point is to slowly desensitize these kids by exposing them to peanut protein in very controlled doses at specific intervals. So the updosing phase works for 6 months, then they have an ongoing maintenance phase at a high dose for another 6 months, and then presumably they're protected under a certain amount of exposure. So this was the largest phase 3 trial for something like this, and you can see here the opportunity is pretty large. So I think a lot of people are going to be interested in this, a lot of parents who want to reduce the chance that their kid might be accidentally exposed to peanuts and just full out die. So this allows them to be exposed to some peanut protein without getting a full out anaphylactic reaction. So this trial, they saw really good phase 2 data, and I reported that in a previous blog post, so definitely go and check that out if you want sort of a primer on this whole thing. So their Palisade trial was big phase 3. They had 554 patients randomized 3-to-1 with the peanut protein or placebo. A lot of these patients were actually very sensitive to peanut protein. 3/4 of them had a history of anaphylaxis. Half of them had asthma, which is associated with allergies, and 2/3 of them had multiple food allergies. So it was definitely a cohort that was relatively extreme when it came to this. And so the way that this works, so the dosing, they start very small, and it goes every week or two that they increase the amount of protein. So the amount of peanut protein that they can handle is only 10 milligrams before they start getting severe reactions. So they're starting much lower than that, and then they slowly escalate to about 300 milligrams, and then for 6 months they're on that 300 milligram dose, and then at the end of the year they go through a food challenge, and that determines whether or not they to see the maximum dose of protein they can handle before they undergo an anaphylactic or a severe reaction. Okay, so for the trial, they did so this is what the food challenge is called, the DBPCFC, double-blind placebo-controlled food challenge. And it's a surrogate for accidental exposure. So they do this in this trial. They did it at entry to see how sensitive these patients were to peanut protein, and then they did it at the end to confirm it. So the way this works is they give small but increasing increments of peanut protein every 20 minutes, and then they wait to see how the symptoms react. So once the symptoms get to medium or severe, they stop the trial, and then whatever that dose was, that's their tolerance of peanut protein. And they obviously don't want to go too far because it could trigger a severe reaction. So they try to hold it back from there. So anyway, in this trial, they did the DBPCFC at the beginning and at the end, and they had an independent assessor who did not know, so they were blinded as well. So they didn't know if the kid was actually on the AR101 or the placebo, AR101 being the actual peanut protein. So the results were, as I did predict this. I thought this was going to be kind of a slam dunk, and the market actually agreed with me. They weren't surprised, but in the AR101 group, they saw a significant increase in responders at 300, 600, and 1,000 milligram doses, which is pretty impressive. So just compared to the placebo, at 1,000 milligrams, which is the equivalent of three full peanuts, it's pretty good. So they saw a big response. The 600 and 300 milligram doses were even better. So I think this is what they were hoping to see. The FDA didn't respond very well to another company that had a similar product. So I also commented on this on a previous blog post, but DBV Technologies has a subcutaneous desensitization therapy that they tried, but the confidence intervals weren't very good, even though they had statistically significant data. But it turns out, and they announced this relatively recently, that the FDA is going to allow them to submit a biologics license application for kids that are 4 to 11 years old. So Aimmune's definitely going to have a competitor in this space, but I really think that patients are going to gravitate towards the therapy that works significantly better and has a larger effect. So this was great news for them. The other thing that people were worried about were the amount of side effects going on. So and the number of dropouts, actually. So 1 out of 5 people dropped out of the study, and it wasn't clear totally from the conference call why that was. There were a bunch of different reasons. In almost all the patients, they had some sort of treatment-related adverse event, and I think that's to be expected, just given that the body and its immune system is trying to react appropriately to getting exposed to these foreign agents every single day. So they're definitely going to have something going on as they're undergoing this treatment. But as long as they're willing to finish the treatment, they're able to see these great results. So the discontinuations are kind of all over the place. Gastrointestinal, respiratory, systemic hypersensitivity. So I don't know, trouble. Actually, it wouldn't be trouble breathing. Maybe just heart race, kind of weird stuff going on. But the doctors behind it, they didn't seem too surprised at this 1 out of 5 dropout rate. Okay, so overall, they were very happy with this, and they're moving forward. This is very positive data. They want to submit a BLA in the United States, and they're going to be doing this in late 2018. The trials they're going to be finishing up this year before that, and so the MAA is for European submission. So they're looking at both Europe and the United States, which is great. They want to finish up this Palisade follow-on here And so they're hoping to, the trial, the Palisade trial was 1 year, and they want to continue this for another year with these kids. And they also want to give the placebo kids the actual AR-101 to see if it works in them too, which I think it will. The Ramseys trial is the only difference between the Ramseys trial and the Palisade trial is that there's no entry food challenge test. So apparently the food challenge test actually hypersensitizes people, allergic people. So they want to actually do a trial with people that aren't hypersensitized by this entry food challenge. So the data for that are expected in second half of 2018, and they're expecting data to be almost better than what was seen in the Palisade trial, given that the kids are not going to be as hypersensitive to that. In Europe, they've got another trial going on. So these guys are doing a ton of work, in my opinion, to really get a big data set for the BLA submission in the US, and I don't think they're going to have any trouble actually getting it through. The one thing that's different in the Artemis trial is that the primary endpoint is the 1,000 milligram dose at the exit food challenge. So the primary endpoint was only the 600 milligram dose in Palisade. So they upped the bar a little bit in Europe, but I think given the large difference between placebo and test group, that it shouldn't be a problem. So they do another trial on pediatric kids. So these are very young patients, so they want to see if it works, if the age actually matters. One thing that they mentioned also is that they had an adult group, so people that were over 17 years old, and about half of them actually dropped out of the trial, but they didn't really have a specific reason why. They said it had really nothing to do with the treatment, but more to do with timing. So the patients didn't want to schedule properly, so it seems like this could work, and they could get an indication for this for adults, which are, a pretty substantial population of people that have a peanut allergy. So it seems like they can really expand to different markets, and that's ideal. So in terms of the questions that people brought up in the conference call when I was listening to it, there wasn't anything more surprising than what was provided in the press release, but they said that they have a Florida plant to produce GMP approved peanut protein in these appropriate denominations, and they have enough for 500,000 patients per year so far, which I think is good, just given that the rollout is going to take some time. But the number of patients that their target is 1.6 million in the United States, so hopefully they'll be able to get another facility involved so that they can actually reach that potential, because they're going to want to hit the ground running, especially if they have a competitor like DBV who's going to actually, they're going to be able to get some customers, presumably. So other than that, they talked a little bit about a collaboration they had with Nestle and with Regeneron and Sanofi. So they have other trials going on. Here it is. So they're doing a collaborative trial with a drug that's supposed to suppress the immune system a little bit when it comes to allergy. And they didn't talk too much about the Nestle collaboration, but just the fact that it's there. So when it comes to trying to price out what kind of price target we can expect, it's a little bit difficult, just given that we're still waiting for the BLA application to go through and the MAA application. But they talked about how they're hiring, and they have hired the appropriate people. They're starting to get marketing people and sales people involved, field management people, patient education people, and payer education. So they're going to have to see the same thing that I talked about with ADMS. They want formularies to put it on their drug list, and they're going to hope to get it covered by Medicare or whatever. So we'll see how that goes, but it looks like 2019 is when we're actually going to start to see some sales come in and prescriptions written for this product. So until then, it's pretty much let's wait and see and make sure that their other trials go through okay. So the stock itself, so in late October was the news that DBVT's trial was not impressive enough for the FDA. And so this sent Aimmune stock flying, and they've been bouncing around pretty much between 30 and 40 since then. And then, so then when the results came out, the stock was relatively overbought, I guess, and people sold on the news, and that's not surprising. But just from their financial results that came out, people sold on that news as well. So it looks like any excuse to sell in the stock is what is what's happening right now. So let's wait and see. Hopefully, if all the trials go well in the next... Oh, sorry. Here we go. So I expect all the trials to be positive in the next year and that the application has no problem. But some estimates for the cost, somebody from an analyst at Reuters predicted a price point of $5,500 per year, which I think might be a little bit low for a product like this. But if we do assume around $5,000 per year for this product, and if they're able to reach 1.6 million patients, it's about $8 billion a year in revenue. That would be great. They also have Europe to go to, and and if they're able to expand that child population to more, this could be a lot bigger. And their market cap today is 1.63 billion. So I think there's definitely some upside here. I'll put my position in the blog post itself, but I do think that these guys are a long-term hold. Other than that, I think I covered everything. So thank you guys very much for watching. Let me know what you think of the company or just making sure I covered everything. Yeah, that's pretty much all the main beats anyway. So if I missed something on the ADMS category 4, please paragraph for me. Let me know, because I'm kind of learning about that a little bit more as I go along. But gonna wait and see what the company says, and hopefully they say something. But Aimmune, I think, is a buy. I think they have a lot of potential if you're able to hold for the next couple of years, which I am. But thank you very much for watching, and tell a friend if they're interested in getting into biotech. And leave me a comment and subscribe. And with that, I'm going to sign off. But thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.